Hey guys, if you have worked in energy management or building automation for any length of time, you know that having the right tool is an absolute necessity. And it's common for us to have a tool bag that we will generally keep with us, and then sometimes keep something else on the truck for more specialized projects. What I thought that I would do in this video is to show you some of the things that I carry in my bag and give you just a little bit of the reasons why. The first thing that we're going to look at is the bag itself. I've had several different kinds of backpacks. I like the backpack style. It's regularly carried with me. I mean, I carry this thing just with me all the time. And the backpack style is, in my opinion, one of the most comfortable. Now, depending on your type of work, there may be something else that works a little bit better. And I've had several different types of backpacks. I have had Targus, I've had just all kinds of different bags. And this one in particular is probably one of my favorites. This one is by Klein Tools. I don't remember the exact model number, but you can see right there that it is from Klein Tools. And this bag has been possibly the most durable bag that I have had. Most of them will tear the straps. Of course, we overload these bags all the time, but the straps on these are usually what gives out the fastest. I have ripped I don't know how many of these things loose, and I admit that I overload my bags. I keep them loaded with more stuff than I need at times. I try to go through it periodically and thin it down, but having the right tool with me is something that I like to do, and it's hard to, to do your job if you don't have those tools with you. And it adds time to the project if you're having to run back and forth. So things that I know that I use regularly, I keep in this bag. And I'm going to actually take this, put down in the description, I'm going to put a link to Amazon where you can buy one of these bags. And again, this bag itself is, the Klein bag is extremely durable. I've not torn it up the way that I have quite a few of the others that I've had. And on the outside of the bag, the first thing I have is my lockout tag out. That is something that safety is always first. We all want to go home at the end of the day, so make sure that you practice safe work habits. You do not want to get hurt. And so we're just going to go through the bag here. I'm just going to show you a few of the items that are in it. And again, I'm going to put links to as much as I can down in the description. The main compartment here in the back is, of course, where I keep my laptop. You can't really do any kind of building automation programming without a good laptop. And this is from Dell. There's many models out there. This is just what we have a contract with, the company that we have a contract with, and it works fairly well. Of course, they're overloaded with software. Do have a wireless mouse, and you can see that this one is just completely wore out. But I do have that, and all the cords, the power supplies, that sort of thing that go along with it. I also keep in my bag notebooks. I'm sure that you all do as well. Just a couple of tablets, that sort of thing. And it's real common for us to need to take notes while we're in the field, to write down part numbers, that sort of thing. So that's one of the reasons why I always keep a good notebook in my bag. That's pretty much everything that is in there, and just a bunch of junk other than that. In this particular compartment, this is where most of my tools are stored at. And one thing about this bag, you'll notice the depth of it. It is not overly thick. One thing that forces you to do is actually keep your tools to a minimum. I mean, you will not be able to get everything in here, but it'll force you basically to limit what you take with you. I have a couple of these pouches here that I will store certain things in, and just like mini screwdrivers, things like that, precision screwdrivers. And these actually came with another bag that I had. You can see there I've got a couple of mini screwdrivers in there, precision screwdrivers, a thermostat wrench, and that sort of thing. So I just lay that out of the way. Of course, I have a meter. This is a Fluke meter for those that can't see the label there. And this particular meter is just the standard HVAC amp clamp. Sorry for all the bouncing around trying to do this one-handed. This is the meter that really does pretty much everything that I need it to do. Now, I will admit that there are a few occasions where I am needing to measure millivolts or something like that, where this meter will not do that job. We do have access to other meters if we get into one of those situations, but this is just the one that I keep with me. I can generally do most of my electrical troubleshooting with this meter, whether it's motor control, if I'm troubleshooting a VFD, if I'm checking an output from a controller. It's all easily done with this meter, and I will put a description or a link in the description to where you can get this from Amazon as well. Of course, a pair of wire strippers. These are Kleins, and they work very well. I actually have a couple of different sets. One is a little bit smaller. I'll see if I can get to that in a minute. These work very well and are pretty much my go-to wire strippers. The others are for smaller cable than these, and in some cases it is a little bit too small, but we do find ourselves needing that occasionally. This is a 10-way screwdriver. It has the Phillips and flathead on one side in two different sizes. You can just pull that out, go to the other size if necessary, and then you can also pull the entire driver out, flip it around to the other side, and it has a couple of different size Torx heads, and it also has the square heads, the square bit drivers that are out there in some electrical panels and that sort of thing. These also work well as nut drivers. You have a couple of different sizes here as far as doing your work. You can use them as a nut driver, do that all the time, works well. And of course, a pair of gloves. Got to protect your hands. These are just a cheap leather glove, and the other one's in here somewhere. And then this tool is something that I cannot put a link to, and that is because these are only sold through Johnson Controls. These are the BACnet Bluetooth communication modules. You can see there the model number. The BT-CVT, you have to buy these through Johnson Controls. They are not available anywhere else. And you do need those for connecting directly to some of the devices. Of course, we have some fuse pullers. I've got a couple of different sizes here. This is my large ones. And for larger fuses, when you get into some of the larger panels, larger fuses, and the smaller ones are buried in here somewhere. We'll get to them in a minute. This is just a little cheap magnifying glass that I use. It works real well for reading print. Sometimes if you're reading blueprints, it can be a little bit difficult, but this kind of helps out and makes it a little easier. And this particular magnifying glass does have a light on it to help you if you're in a darker area. If you need to read a motor label or something like that, you can take this magnifying glass out, use the light, get a little bit better view of the labeling on a motor. This is just a small network cable connecting to controllers, to NAEs, NCEs, that sort of thing. You do need a couple of different network cables, and this is one of a couple that I actually carry. Nothing special about that. You can get those anywhere. Here's a pair of side cutters. Of course, another tool that is a very popular item when you're working into some of these panels. If you ever have to trace down any kind of wiring, if you ever need to cut your wiring, of course you can cut them with the strippers, but there's a lot of times cutting zip ties, other things, that these are a great little tool. Any of y'all that have been in the business know that very well. Here we have my infrared temperature probe. This is a Fluke 62 Mini is what it is there on the label that you can see, and it does a real good job of reading temperature. It also will hold the highest temperature when you do a scan. It will hold what the highest temperature is as well as the current when you let off that trigger, and it'll actually stay lit for a few seconds. And that's a real handy tool when trying to diagnose some of the VAVs or just to measure the temperature of a coil. It works real well. It's the case. This is my smaller pair of fuse pullers. It's just like the larger ones, same brand. It's just that these are for smaller fuses. These are the ones that I probably use more than any other. We only have certain times when we are in the need of the larger fuses, larger fuse pullers. And of course, no toolkit would be complete without an Allen pack. It's just a standard Allen pack. Again, I will put a link to the description down below to where you can get these from Amazon. And these are very handy in various different applications. Any kind of tool like that. I mean, I like those packs like that because it's multiple sizes and within just a small pack. Now, the L handles, you can see the size comparison between a pack of L handles and one of these. And there are certain situations where an L handle is going to get you where you need to be. But in many of the cases that we have been in, this is able to take care of everything that I need. The reason I've got these L handles in here is we recently changed out a drive on an air handler, and these were just not long enough for this this size drive. It's a very large drive. The terminal lugs were well inset into that drive, so that's why I had these L handles in here. Of course, you've got to have a good pair of channel locks. I usually keep 2 pair. I keep a couple of small pairs. You can see here, again, these come in a set, and these are the 2 sizes that I carry with me. This smaller size is one that I probably use more than I do the larger one, but the reason that I carry the larger one is there are a lot of situations when we're working on valves and that sort of thing, where the others are just too small, and I need to grip the valve from both sides. You know, if you're going to break a union or something apart, you will need a couple of pairs, you know, either a pipe wrench or a couple of pairs of channel locks. So that's why I generally keep 2 pair in here. This is my smaller set of strippers that I told you about, and you can see that that is more for communication wire than it is anything. If you're in a lot of your panels, those are going to be just too small unless you're working with communication wire, but they are very useful. Crescent wrench, I keep a couple in here. These are Crescent brand. This is an 8-inch, and it's used quite regularly. You know, all these tools are. I mean, it's not just any of them more than others, but this one is one that is real handy, and there are times when I will have this one just in my pocket. One this small can save you a lot of steps. Again, this is a Crescent brand wrench. This one, I believe it's the 4-inch, and you can see how small that is, but there's a lot of times to where that wrench will do everything that I need without having to carry everything with me. You know, there's many times that that wrench will work perfect. And some garbage. That's actually the manual for my infrared meter. And something that I like to keep in mind, I do have a zip tie here. I like to keep a headlamp. When you're up in a ceiling or working in some of the different environments, a headlamp can be a lifesaver. This is not a very expensive item. You can pick these up in a lot of places. I'll drop a link again down in the description to Amazon. And these things can really help you. Instead of having to try to worry about holding a light while you're working in a panel, you know how well that some of the mechanical rooms are not lit. These can really help you. You can have this on your head, you can work in the panel, and just one-handed, you can see here, most of the time I can get this on with just one hand, but while I'm here filming, it wants to be a little bit aggravating. But they'll go on fairly easy, and I'm not going to worry about that. And they can really give you a lot of light. You know, these are LED. Takes just a couple of AAA batteries, Real handy item. And of course I do have some different bits that will work in my 10-way screwdriver. Sometimes we find ourselves in need of a different type of bit, a different size Torx, that sort of thing, and these are just a few of the common ones that I have found that I need. Of course, a pencil, and that one, the tip is broke. So that's some of the items in there. Up here you can see that I have another crescent wrench. As you all know, there are times when you need more than one wrench if you're trying to back off a jam nut or something like that. A second crescent wrench is very handy. This hard case is great for a lot of different things. It's really designed for like safety glasses, sunglasses, and that sort of thing. And it works great on keeping things like that protected. What I use mine for is to keep electrical tape in there. Electrical tape and some wire nuts. It's easy access. I am always needing to get to the electrical tape and wire nuts because, you know, trying to cap a wire, trying to make a splice during a repair. So I want those readily available, and I don't want to have to dig through everything to get it. And of course, in this pouch here, all kinds of other cables besides that network cable that you've seen before and my other glove. This has a couple of different type of network cables in here. Just a standard network cable. The yellow network cable you see here is a crossover cable. For those of you all that are not familiar with that, there is actually a difference in this cable from one end to the other. Some particular devices, in order to connect to them, you will have to use a crossover cable, and that's why I have this one. You can make these, or you can buy them off the internet. And then of course here's a just standard network cable, Cat 5, nothing too fancy about that. And this is something that we still see with working with a lot of your legacy controllers. This is a D9 cable. You know, this is a double female, and this is something that does get used fairly regularly if I'm trying to download or upload a DX9100. Now, the thing about some of these newer controllers, or even the older controllers of the newer computers, they don't have the D9 connections on the back the way that they used to. We'll take a quick look at my laptop here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. In the infinite wisdom these days of engineers, one thing they don't do on a lot of your newer machines is they don't put that plug on it. Everything is USB. You can see the two USB ports there. So to overcome that, you know, there are still applications where we have to have that cable, you know, to get into the DX9100 or something like that. I have to have that cable. This is a serial to USB adapter that is an absolute necessity, especially when you are trying to connect to some of the older controllers using one of the 9-pin serial cables. That is an absolute necessity. I will put a link down in the description again to Amazon to where you can purchase one of these. But you know, a lot of the controllers that are out there have been out installed for years, and when we have to service one, our laptop has to have a way to connect to it, and sometimes that's our only option. This is just a standard Netgear switch working with NAEs and NCEs. I can actually set up a mini network with my laptop and one of these to do what I need to do with one of them. And you know, if you've worked with a lot of the equipment for any period of time, you know that these are very handy. It's just setting up a network, doing what you need to do with it. And another item that I have is just a USB 2.0 cable. There are times that I have needed to use this for one reason or another. If you need to print something out for whatever reason, if you're somewhere that you can't necessarily connect to your local printer, you might be able to borrow a printer from whatever department you have to be working in at the time. So that's why I keep one of them in there. And something else about this bag is the bottom of it. That is a very hard plastic bottom that is on this. It stands up fairly well. It's also, you don't have to worry about stuff getting in and soaking through into all of your stuff. In when you're out working, you have it in the back of your service truck. If you're in a mechanical room where there's water or anything like that, if you set your bag down, it's a little bit less of a worry of having stuff to get into your equipment. Those are just a few of the items that I use. My most used items, again, are in this bag. I just thought that I would share that with you. Check out the description below for links to many of these items. If you have any questions, drop those down in the description. Let me hear from you, what kind of stuff you keep in your tool bag. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.